Offspring, the 2009 horror film, was actually based off of the novel written by Jack Ketchum by the same title. What most people probably don't know is that it's actually the film's actually based off of the sequel to the original novel. The original novel was actually called Off Season, and it's basically just somewhat of a modernized retelling of the Alexander Swanee legend, which was, of course, basically back in medieval Celtic period. He was a man who supposedly, this is all alleged, of course, never has been proven to be true. There's so many conflicting facts, but supposedly he was the son of a ditch digger, didn't really take too much towards the family business, I guess you could say. So he basically set off with his woman. They went off and lived in a cave, basically just lived off the forest. And pretty much just lived there for years. Eventually time goes by, people start going missing, body parts start showing up. Basically what was going on is, of course, they made their own family, but they were also cannibals, and their numerous children and grandchildren were actually, obviously, since there was no one else around, the product of incest. So basically that is what Off Season is a modernized retelling of. The Offspring is the sequel, which the movie is based off of. Does take place in Maine as well. Obviously a different storytelling style. We do have a woman, she's a battered woman going out with her child. She's heading out to visit her friends in the country. She's basically just kind of trying to meet her husband, or soon-to-be ex-husband, to sign some papers there. Obviously she feels safer in a crowd, and understandably. The couple who does live in the country home, of course, the night before they actually saw a nude woman wandering around in their field, and the husband, kind of wonders to himself if there's a nudist colony nearby. Of course, the naked chick does come into play later on. We also do follow the husband making his road trip to visit or drop by and sign the papers, and we get an idea of just how twisted or masochistic he really is. We basically do follow him picking up a hitchhiker, tormenting her in various ways. But basically, once he does make his way out to sign the papers, the slaughter has pretty much happened, so he's basically just walking into the party right in the middle. He is eventually, of course, abducted by the clan, as well as his ex-wife-to-be. The wife's friend meets an untimely end, but she had been abducted because she was nursing, and obviously the cannibals had a child with no mother that also needed to be fed, so she served a purpose. Eventually they do manage to escape, but they have one surviving clan member, which did make it out alive, which leads us into a tie-in, The Woman, which I'm sure most people have seen. This film, of course, was released in 2011, and it follows the last surviving cannibalistic clan member. Obviously she's roaming around in the forest, and Chris, who also happens to be a masochistic husband and father, spots her, obviously takes a fancy to her, catches her, brings her home, tells his family that they are going to civilize her. He learns very early on to keep his distance, as he winds up losing a finger. Pretty much all of the family members are not too willing to get too close to her. Obviously she's very frightening, she's filthy, she's very feral. But pretty much the only person who does come near her, other than the husband, for obvious reasons, is the younger son, Brian, who for some reason takes just a little bit too much joy out of tormenting her. We also do have a tie-in with a school teacher, Peg, who is she's the older daughter, begins acting just a bit peculiar at school, so a school teacher drops by to voice her concerns. Basically, Chris, just kind of assuming that his secret had been discovered, beats the teacher, locks her in a cage with dogs. And during all this turmoil, Peg basically heads back to the shed, lets the feral woman loose. She first attacks Peg's mother, then goes after Brian, and then later Chris. So the only two survivors in this one actually are Peg and her younger sister, Darlin. They basically join the woman in the woods, so they basically just sort of form a new clan. Obviously, I'm kind of wondering if eventually there's going to be another sequel, since you have a clan of nothing but women. You can't really keep a clan going without the obvious. So Just kind of curious to see if there's going to be any other spin-offs in that aspect, but definitely a really great film. The Woman is far superior to The Offspring, but both are pretty good movies. The only thing I would say to The Offspring's credit is it's obviously a lot more fast-paced. Obviously, because it's a film, they cut out all of the slow points in the book, but it follows the book fairly closely, so fairly accurate. So either way, I would say if you haven't seen either, they're both standalone stories, so it really doesn't matter which one you watch first. Both are pretty good. Woman is definitely far superior for looking for storytelling and gore factor. But that is pretty much all I have for you today, and I will talk to you later.